Welcome to Social Situation, episode 16. We are joined today by the amazing Liz Best. Liz is a facilitator, ESG advisor, podcast host, and founder of Girls Club Collective, the leadership lab helping feminist change agents navigate transition. Trevor, welcome back. It's so great to be back. Always love being here, catching up with you, seeing you. What have you been up to since we last spoke?
Oh, so many things, Erin. It's been way too long since we've done an episode, and thank you everyone for your patience as we've been going through. I especially have been going through a lot of different transitions with Orgmatch now being sold as a company, and me moving on to working for a new company now in a new role, which is really exciting, and kind of figuring out all of that, which has been keeping me busy over the last few months, Aaron. So that's my excuse. But life is really good. I mean, definitely enjoyed the summer and the fall so far. Have been enjoying time with friends and family, enjoying the ho different holidays and feasts. Of course, we had Thanksgiving here in Canada not too long ago, and I know yours is upcoming. So, yeah, how have things been on your end?
Well, first of all, congratulations, Trevor, on everything that you've been doing, selling org match, starting a new role. I know in our kind of side conversations, I've been hearing more details about all the exciting changes and transitions and things that you've had going on. And yeah, I'm really proud of you for all that you've been doing and all the good you continue to put out in the world. So no excuses ever needed. And I know how busy you have been, and we thank our listeners for patience with us as we took a bit of a pause. But we're really excited to be back with some amazing guests this season. But thinking about, yeah, what I've been up to, it's been a very busy fall, taking advantage of all the fall, in air quotes, kind of things happening here in Los Angeles, California, where it's warm all the time. I actually love the cold and the seasons and the different weather days. So it's been interesting being in sunshine with pumpkins all around and all that. But regardless, it's been fun to take advantage of some fall activities with the family. And actually, something I was thinking about recently. So Halloween was, of course, just recently, and we went trick or treating with our 1.5 year old, and it really brought me so much joy. Obviously, to see a child, to see through a child's eyes this holiday, but to see the joy in the adult's eyes was almost like, I can't say better because it was amazing to see my daughter go through it, but it was just so inspiring. I saw adults of all ages get dressed up, go all out, trick or treat, get the candy, let loose, go into character, just be like real and raw and authentic and kind of go back to that childlike self, which I feel like it's not gone. It's just deep within us and we don't let it out too often. And so as I've been kind of going along since Halloween, I've been thinking about like how can we bring that joy and that childlike wonder out in ourselves as adults, as professionals, as people in the impact space. When times are tough, how can we just allow ourselves to retreat and just be happy and joyful and be like a kid and remember, the little things that are so important. So trying to kind of take that with me since the Halloween festivities.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And the holidays are the perfect time to, I think, just take in what really matters, and that's like the time with loved ones and reconnecting with our purpose and who we are and slowing down a little bit. So I think that's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, I think it's been the same for me. Definitely enjoyed Halloween, though did not have the joy of being with children, but was definitely with adults and enjoying dressing up in silly costumes and enjoying life that way. So I think, as you said, Erin, it's like we just have to connect with what brings us joy and happiness, and that's going to bring us the energy to get through the work that we need to, because it can be tough times out there, and without the energy, without the community of loved ones, it's a lot harder, and um, so spending that time, getting that energy back, getting that connection with the people we love and who lift us up, I mean that makes it all possible.
Totally agree. Yeah, I think it's so important to, I like what you said, kind of go back to our purpose and our foundation and like what is it that that sparks those moments of joy that brings us together in community with others. So definitely something I'm going to try to take into the holidays, even when times are challenging or stress arises. Like, remember to just pause and find our child within us, let unleash them, allow them to reemerge, and see how that carries us through difficult times.
I love that, Erin. Well, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back and we'll have our interview with Liz Best of the Girls Club Collective.
Welcome to Social Situation. We are thrilled to have Liz Best with us here today, founder of GCC Girls Club Collective. Liz has been an amazing support of mine throughout the years, especially in my more recent solopreneur journey. So we're super excited to be in conversation with her today. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me, Erin and Trevor. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today.
Likewise.
Totally likewise. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to be able to meet you for the first time. I know you have known Erin for a while as well, and we can get into that in a second. But first of all, let's make it all about you, front and center. Welcome to the show. You're a great community builder. You've launched your business, I believe, in 2020. Can you just tell us about that story? Why did you start your business? What led you to the point of starting something from scratch?
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. I mean, I had had my business on my heart for a long time before it actually became a reality. Back even in my first corporate responsibility role, which I started back in like 2010, I feel like I had the experience that I know so many others in the space had where I just kept raising my hand for more and more impact related work, and kept growing my portfolio, and then found myself completely burnt out. And I feel like I was in the role where that happened for about 6 years. And over the course of that time, I met so many other people, predominantly, but not exclusively women, working in the space who were having really similar experiences of getting the quote unquote dream job and then totally burning ourselves out. And it was like, I probably, after having like the 10th or 20th conversation about this with someone and watching all these people who I'd been admiring in the space, um, basically walk away from their job to like heal, recover, think about what was next. It's like, I really feel like there is opportunity for coaching that helps people who work in sustainability have a more personally sustainable approach. And I'd had the benefit of some really early exposure to coaching that totally shifted the trajectory of my life and my career. And so I had it on my heart that that was something that I really wanted to do. And I also did not feel like I was ready yet. And so I ended up leaving that job. I moved to the Bay Area. I joined an organization called BSR, and just started meeting so many people from across the space. And I felt like in conversation after conversation, I was like, yep, this is very true. The burnout is very much a thing. I had the benefit of getting to convene a bunch of leaders. I led this group called the Future of Reporting Group. And I found that like in the convenings, the burnout definitely came up. But I also found like people really wanted to talk about things like leadership, wanted to build relationships. We were having these really juicy conversations about the work during the day, but everyone was most looking forward to happy hour where they could just build real relationships with other people who got it, who understood the nature of what we were trying to do and all the things we were holding. And so, I think that experience really opened my eyes like, okay, I do really want to work with people to help make this work more personally sustainable. And I think relationship building with each other is like a big part of the equation of how we keep going. And so I didn't feel ready when I started my business in 2020 necessarily to take on the convening or the organizing aspects of the work. I felt like, okay, let me work one-on-one with some women from across the space and start to see like what people really need. Let me myself enter a bunch of different group and community spaces and see what I think works, what I think could be better. And I spent about a year and a half working one-on-one with dream clients and like asking questions and occupying spaces and being like, what does the like connected community cohort version of this look like? And I like came out with like my first guess and thesis of what it might be, what was then called the Girls Club Mastermind back in fall of 2021. I was so surprised and delighted. I actually had 13 leaders from like all over our world and industry say yes to that first cohort. We were still pretty deep in the pandemic and we were meeting primarily over Zoom, but we did get to have like, there was like a break in the clouds and it felt safe to gather in person that fall for the first retreat I ever led. And the whole thing was just magic. I was like, oh my goodness, the things that people were, the wins that people were having, the things that they were bringing to the group for support, the things they were walking away from or saying no to. Like it was incredible, personal, professional, like all of it intertwined. And the relationships from that cohort persist today. Like I know there are people who met there who have gone on international trips together, who have collaborated on different projects together. And so I really felt like, okay, I feel like I'm on to something. And I'll try, in the interest of being brief, I'll say like, I ran a few more cohorts after that and then was finding myself spending so much time connecting people from across cohorts and also seeing that for my one-on-one clients, people were getting what they wanted so much faster when they were enlisting the support of other people, when they were practicing saying what they wanted out loud. And that was really what inspired me to create what's now the Girls Club Collective community, which launched at the beginning of 2023, was just feeling like we needed like a bigger home and bigger umbrella for this type of connection and community on an ongoing basis that wasn't just confined to like a cohort window. So yeah, I can say a bunch more about all of that, but I will pause there.
That's so amazing, Liz. And like, I love that you took the time to really do your research and listen to other women in the broader impact space and see where the needs were, what were people lacking, and how powerful to host your first gathering and have so much magic come out of it and so much connection. And I'm sure people felt so seen and heard and felt like they could be vulnerable. And then obviously got so much out of it, seeing as so many are still in touch today. So that is really incredible. And I'm curious, for our listeners, for folks that might want to join, a couple questions. One, who is your average, I don't know if you can even say like average participant or average member of your community at this point? Who are you seeing join? Or who would you like to see join?
I love that question. And I will say the thing that I think really sets our community apart and something that's such a strong element of who we bring in and how we gather is that we are a really value-centered, values-aligned community. So I feel really strongly that like a lot of our ideal members are like such different points in their journey. I can definitely give you some like high level demographic stats. I mean, most of our members, I would say, are between like, late 20s and like 50. There are people who are outside of that range who are having a great time. Most people are working in impact in some capacity, but also, I mean, the number of our members are entrepreneurs. Our membership breaks down to about a third people who are full-time entrepreneurs, a third people who are fully in-house and like happy in-house, and a third people who are like somewhere in the middle, maybe in-house with a side hustle or dreaming about starting a business. And I actually think it's like such a great mix to have all those perspectives in the room, because when you're in-house, you often like don't have people that you could just like phone a friend and ask certain questions to. Same when you're an entrepreneur and you're serving like a B2B audience and you can't always get that in-house perspectives. But because we put relationships first, I feel like our members, I've had reflected back to me that people are like, I really genuinely feel like I can show up as myself to our calls. I come from a run. I don't have makeup on. I'm like in the car, but I know joining is better than not joining. And so I'm going to show up. And that means so much to me. But so yeah, to answer like the values piece, I do think that's really what makes our membership so special. And let me see if I can remember all five off the top of my head. I think mutual support is like number one. I mean, it's hard to even rank them, but people are coming to our community because they believe that we go further together. They're generous and they want to support other people. Authenticity and like having real talk and real conversations. Like people are not sharing the polished talking points version of how they got something done in our space. They're having like authentic, vulnerable conversations about what worked and what didn't work. Radical celebration is something that I feel really, really strongly about. We celebrate the big wins, the small wins. We celebrate putting up our out of office and saying no just as much as we celebrate like the shiny promotion. Um, oh my goodness. And the other two are going to come to me as soon as I stop talking. So I will stop talking and let them come to me because there are five and I feel like they work together really beautifully.
That's amazing, Liz. And I mean, what a testament to you to hear that people are like comfortable showing up as they are, whether physically coming, from that run or whether just, in the spirit of vulnerability and, feeling like you can share what's on your heart and in your mind, you have created that space and that's really powerful. I feel like in this impact space, yes, we're working together. Yes, we have shared goals, but it can also feel very lonely and isolating, especially when you think about like corporate impact teams that are so small within companies that are so large, or folks in the nonprofit space that are just hustling every day to try to bring funds in and try to keep the lights on. We can feel like we're on this journey alone. And so it sounds so powerful and transformative what you've built to be able to unite people and to just know that you have the folks in your corner, you have those cheerleaders that are there for the small wins and the big wins. So that's really amazing. I guess on that topic, yeah.
I
Oh,
was
sorry,
gonna
go ahead.
thank you
Yeah.
so much. I love that reflection. It really means so much. And I honestly think I'm like one more of them has come to me, which I
Oh,
feel
great.
related to this. I think being able to like see each other and be seen. I think for so many of us, we feel like we're on an island in this work. And we often feel like we're the only one holding whatever the thing is that we're holding. And I think the ability to like have space to talk about it can be so impactful. One of our other values that is really important to me that I think relates to this directly is the idea of like reimagining ambition and like really having like a different relationship to like what we want to be ambitious about. I think that's something that's really special within GCC is like being comfortable naming like if your ambition right now is like I want to work 20 hours a week and go to the beach, or I want to um yeah, maybe like have a small business so that I can pick my daughter up from school every day. Or maybe you do want to be in the C-suite and climbing the corporate ladder is exactly what you want for this season in your life. Like I think it's really special that we've created a place where everyone is like able to own those things and be celebrated and seen and supported, because I think so often like the models that we've seen of what success looks like are so specific and I think don't necessarily match up with what a lot of us are calling in at this point of our lives. So yeah, sorry to jump back in, but I was like, oh, that feels
No, thank you. That was great. No, and I feel like, yeah, like the societal expectations can be so limiting and how we view and judge ourselves and our accomplishments and our wins. And so I love that you're reframing things for people and celebrating whatever it is people seek to do in their careers and lives and seek to accomplish. And appreciate that everyone is looking for different things and at different stages of the journey. I think that's really amazing. And I guess too, kind of on the topic of community, Liz, I'd love to hear like how community has shifted for you throughout your career. Like how has kind of your view of community changed, or the impact that community has had throughout your life, or even like what community means to you now that you're running one and you've been running one for many years now yourself. Curious kind of your thoughts on that.
what a fun question. I feel like I am more like pro community now than I think I've ever been. I will say it definitely was not, well, I wanted, when I was starting my business, I did have the sense that I wanted to gather people as part of that. I did not set out to build a community. And honestly, I think if I had known how much work it would be to build a community, I don't know if I would have done it, which like I'm so grateful that I have done this and I'm so like inspired and in awe of our members and like what a gift to get to do this. But it is like a huge undertaking that is not, it was not like the thing that I was setting out to do. But I think what I've been finding and where I feel so strongly about this now is I think individualism is such a lie. And I think, especially like it's interesting, I don't know for you, as I know you're also a coach, Erin, like I just think so much of, and I'm still unwinding and unwrapping a lot of this for myself, but I think so much of like personal growth and self-help and like the personal development and professional development skills and resources that we are taught in like, you know, the United States and Canada and North America, like so much of it is centered on like us as individuals. It's about like how we show up. It's about our like wellness, our self-care. And I just don't think that that is how we get to where we need to go as like a collective and for humanity as we deal with big things like the climate crisis, as we think about like how we meaningfully ensure things like access to food and drinking water and human rights for people around the world. Like these like challenges that so many of us are working on and care about, they are not individual. They are systemic, they are collective. And I think that like we are hopefully, I believe, in the middle of like a big shift and reframe. And there's so many cultures that have understood this for a very long time. And so like definitely not the person to have this idea, but I just feel like I was just reading something the other day and I wish I could attribute it. It's just like we are not well if all the people around us and people who are not even physically around us are not well. And so I think if we really want to think about wellness as a society, if we really want to deal with things like the loneliness epidemic, and if we really want to like get the things that we want, because I think those of us who are good people, like the things that we want are good, I think we just need collective leadership. We need community. We need relationships, and we need very different approaches that put we over I. And I do think that community can be such a big piece of that, like surrounding ourselves with people who get it, who want to help, and who similarly are like reimagining and like reconfiguring their own relationships with individualism.
Really powerful. Really, really powerful to think about that, Liz. And like you're painting a difference between like, community building and traditional networking, where it's like traditional networking, maybe like a zero sum, competitive. How many business cards can I collect? How many deals can I put on the table? Very different type of thinking, right? And then what you're painting is actually a picture that says, the pathway to prosperity is actually a totally different model altogether, where we're just like showing up, and maybe you have something to offer that day and maybe you don't, but like you're still showing up with where you're at, and that's good enough, and that's okay. There's no performance. It's just like be in the room and let's have a conversation. Is that accurate? And can you just go into depth about how you see that model and why that model is so much more effective for those who are stuck in the traditional, hyper-capitalist Chicago model school of thinking? Like how do we help those people get to the other side and see the light?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so tough because I mean, I love that reflection. I do think like showing up and presence like is success in so many ways. And I know that's just not how so many of us were taught to think about this stuff. And it's funny, like the number of conversations I have and like resources I've created and like, just talking about like non-icky, non-transactional networking. It is so different from what I think so many of us have experienced over the course of our careers. I'm like just such a big believer in the power of reciprocal relationships. And I also think like, how do we make this easy for people? Like that was really like what inspired me to actually go about building this thing is I was like, no one wants to send a cold DM on LinkedIn at the end of a long day. I love LinkedIn, but that's just not usually what we want to do to close out our day. This is like, how can we just make it possible for people to like run into each other and to run into people who you already know are like vetted and share your values and care about some of the things that you care about? And like the way that we actually, I think, shift from like this more transactional model to long-term relationships, a lot of times it's like, and thinking about this for a virtual community in particular, because we do in-person stuff, but we're virtual first, is like it's simulating like the running into someone. It's like we build trust, I think, from like proximity a lot of times, or from like just the like repeated interactions and like the friendly face that you see across the street at the coffee shop every day. Like that's like building familiarity, like that's deepening that relationship. And so a lot of like how I've been thinking about our programming within GCC is like, how do we create those run-ins? How do we like make that familiarity possible? How do we like really seed that trust like month over month, year after year, season after season? Because when that's there, it becomes so much more possible to do the uncomfortable thing and ask for help, or to do perhaps the more comfortable thing and offer help and, and to just really like again come together and support each other as we're all figuring out how we meet this moment, which feels like a really tough moment to meet.
I love that so much. Like, I feel like if you're naturally running into someone, it obviously feels more natural, it feels less forced. You feel like you can kind of have your guard down a little bit. People are meeting you where you're at. So I love that that's something you're thinking about. I think that's really powerful. Networking can just even hearing that word can just cause so much, anxiety and stress and fear in people. So reimagining or rethinking this into community building, which is what we talk a lot about here on the podcast, is so powerful and can really make all the difference for someone to not fear it and but to get excited about it and to see these relationships as potential for ongoing opportunities and to see it not as transactional but something that can transcend years and careers and can, I'm sure, like you said, so many people on in your community are in touch still and traveling together and are friends, and like how amazing if you can get the support from someone that you can also call a friend, that you can also call a colleague, that you can also call a partner in this work. So I love that you're doing that. I want to switch gears for a second, Liz. I know that you recently, sort of recently, I feel like time is flying, had a little one. So we're both newer moms at this point, and I've loved hearing about your new mom life and what it's been like to bring a little one into the world. You've been super supportive of my Moms and Social Impact community, which I really am grateful for. And I'd love to hear what community has looked like for you as you've straddled motherhood and the new parenting kind of world you're in, as well as your entrepreneurship world that you've been in for obviously quite a bit longer.
Yeah, it's a fun question and a fun opportunity to reflect, honestly, because I mean, community has been like so essential to building this business. I've been part of various communities of other entrepreneurs and founders from the very beginning. I didn't want to do this alone. And I feel so lucky, like honestly, my experience of entering motherhood has like is maybe one of the most supported chapters of my adult life. Like I was later to this than most of my friends. And so I feel like just the outpouring of generosity, support, like the number of people who I wouldn't have necessarily expected to have be like, if I can answer anything, tell like any question you have, anything that you want, like, do you want this? Like, do you want this stuff? Do you want advice? But being really thoughtful before offering the advice. Like I feel like I've been so supported. I will say something that has been kind of funny to me is that one of the apprehensions that I had before going on this journey was feeling like I did not know a lot of other moms who were entrepreneurs or founders and feeling like I was like, I know so many amazing moms and I know so many amazing entrepreneurs, and I don't feel like I know a lot of people who are in the intersection of that Venn diagram. And totally not intentionally. And there are a lot of people in GCC who fit a million other profiles, but I do feel like there are a lot of moms who are entrepreneurs in GCC. Like that definitely is like a significant demographic within our community. And so I had a fun moment because, I began building long before, I became a mom, but of being like, oh my goodness, I totally built the community that I wanted and needed before I even really consciously knew that I would want or need it. It's been so cool to have so many expanders in this community and see so many people who are further ahead on the business journey or further ahead on their motherhood journey, or both, or neither. To also have people where it's been really joyful for me to get to pay forward some of the advice and the tips and tricks that I've received. So yeah, I feel like community has been everything, and it's been really fun, I think, to have friends both within and outside of the community who are also entrepreneurs to compare notes with, like on this experience with, because it is a really, really specific experience. And I mean, I could get even more specific in like service-based solopreneur. It's so specific, and like being able to have like those voice note conversations of like, this is so hard has been really, really helpful. And also this is so beautiful and so joyful. And I feel so lucky to have like this independence. I kind of felt like I heard a little bit more of how hard things were and a little bit less of how joyful things were before this chapter. And so I want to be really conscious of not just talking about the parts that are hard, which is real, but I feel like there's also been a lot of parts that are really joyful, and it's been fun to share that as well.
I'm so glad you felt so supported. I agree. Community is everything, especially as you're entering this new phase in your life. But at the same time, you have this business that you want to keep going, and you're so passionate about that. That's your first baby. So I'm really glad that you've been surrounded by people that are like-minded or in a similar phase, or that can, share those helpful words or just commiserate when, there are hard days, but also that you've built a community that you benefit from as well. I think that's so powerful. And I think that's often the case as I build things. I'm like, oh, actually, I needed this, or actually, I'm a coach and then I'm seeking out my own coach, or whatever it may be. I think that's often how it is in our careers, especially when we get the opportunity to build something of our own. We realize, hey, this serves me too. And I think I love that. It's amazing that you can, just as much organize it and facilitate and bring people together, but also get something out of it for yourself. That's great.
Totally. Yeah, thank you for that reflection. And it's so true. It's like, and sometimes we're like building things for our past selves and we know it. And sometimes we're building things for our future selves and we know it. And sometimes we have no idea.
And for those
Totally.
who have no idea, which like I might count myself within that category right now, like yeah, and like I've attempted to do this before, starting communities as part of my own businesses with varying degrees of success, and often I don't know where to start, and so I think it's really inspiring to see like how full circle this has come for you, years later, when you've started maybe like not having all of those paths lined up, laid out for you to say, here's the clear direction, here's the linear path to success. And so what advice would you have for someone who's facing that uncertainty, not sure the next best step, the first right step to getting started, building that community that's going to support their business? I mean, what would you say to somebody who was just trying to take that first action?
Yeah, it's such a fun question. I feel like I'm loving your questions today, Trevor and Erin. These are great. I mean, I think I'm a big believer in doing like ideal client research. I think it's funny. There's a quote that's been kind of haunting me the past week, which is like this idea of like falling in love with the problem. I think there's like a couple different ways to approach community building, but I do think having like a really clear person that you're building for, which for me was very much like this values aligned woman in the impact ESG space, maybe not married to continuing in that space from a job title perspective, but with like a heart for impact and a mission. And then a clear problem, which for me was like, feeling alone, feeling isolated, feeling like you're on an island and or feeling like burnt out and overwhelmed and like you wanted to build real relationships with people who understood and could help. I think figuring out like the who and like what the problem is that you're gonna be in love with for like hopefully a really long time, and then talking to people and asking them like what they want, what they need, what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what advice they have for you. Like, I found that people will be so wildly generous and will honestly answer almost any question that you ask if and when you ask. And so, honestly, doing that type of market or dream client research has become an exercise I do in my business at least once a year. Anytime we're like thinking about launching a new thing or feeling like we're not seeing like the engagement on something that we might want to see, or just have like a hypothesis. I feel like every time I do this before I try to like come out with like, ta-da, this is the answer, it always goes so much better. And there, even recently, even this fall, there was a time where I was collaborating with someone on something and we were like, we think we know all these answers. Let's just cut straight to the ta-da. And it was a really hard sales process. We ended up having still a really awesome experience, but we were kicking ourselves because we were like, we tell people all the time to like just ask your people questions, and we didn't ask our people questions, and now we're like having this really not fun slog of a sales experience that we totally could have avoided by asking 5 people 5 questions. So that would be my number one piece of advice for where to get started.
I totally agree. I think like, yeah, I love how you said, build for somebody, like just like pick the person you think is most ideal and kind of build for them. And I think like one of the challenges we get, like when we're entrepreneurs too, we're visionaries, it's big picture. What does this look like at scale? How are we changing the world? And so when I'm, speaking with entrepreneurs, oftentimes like they have these big grandiose visions And so like even to try to like get into a very specific profile of a customer is really challenging for them because they're like, well, no, we're changing the world. How could we start so small, so niche, so specific? And it's like, well, when you're planting a garden, like you have to find the best place to plant the first seed, right? And that's gonna, and then the garden can kind of build it. And that's kind of how I approach it. But how do you get people to sort of find like what is that niche or that first seed that they can plant based on what they know or who they are?
Yeah, I mean, I think I having a like a really clear who this is for, like, is so important. And I've found, and I've had reflected back to me over the course of my business, like it's so helpful the way you describe your ideal client because I know exactly who to send to you. And like for me, I think psychographic information is even more important often than demographic information, which is like what are the thoughts the person is having. Like I can say with full confidence, people in my world, the number one question that we're asking ourselves is, am I making a big enough impact? That's the question. So it's like, how can we like figure out different ways of like helping people answer that question? I think if someone's like, and I often find this when I'm coaching entrepreneurs too, it's like if someone's having a hard time like getting really specific with like who exactly their services are for, I often like one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I was first starting my business was like you get more information through action than through endless strategizing. And so I think it's like how do you figure out like the smallest possible experiment to like just offer a thing and see who wants it. Like I think if you're not feeling confident in like reverse engineering who that ideal client is, then the other way to approach it is like figure out like the offer that you want to make and see who says yes. And like I think and like pilot it, like try it with a couple people, get some feedback, see what's working, see if you like working with that person or that type of organization. Like I don't know anyone, I cannot think of a single person who has the business that they started with like a year in or 2 years in. Like it's gonna evolve and shift but you need to, I think about, I feel like I'm dropping so many like metaphors and analogies today, but it's like you have to make the first pancake that's not great in order to get to the like good second pancake, third pancake, fourth pancake. And so I think a lot of times it's like, let's just try something and get the information and then we can go from there. But this is not going to be a one and done process.
I love it. I love the analogies and metaphors. And yeah, that really puts things into perspective for folks because I think a lot of people that are looking to start their own thing or looking to start their own community can be so lost. Understandably, I have been there myself in analysis paralysis or overthinking, like, ooh, like, is this the right offering? Who am I going to sell to? Like, what are the next steps? Like, should I do it? And sometimes you need to just ask those questions. You need to just try the thing. So I really appreciate the pancake metaphor right there, just we might fail. Failure is going to happen. And my business certainly doesn't look like it looked, or how I intended it to look a few years back. And that's okay. That's all part of the journey of getting to those really nice pancakes. I love that. And I think that that's really helpful for our listeners. And another thing too, there's so much about running a community and just being a solopreneur that can feel, I'm sure, like a lot, right? The job is never ending. You could work 24/7, there's always more that you could do. And I know you have built something that is impacting so many people. But I'd love to hear, from your perspective, being at this for a while now, like what brings you calm? How do you decompress? How do you say, you know what? No, I'm not going to work 24/7. I need time for me. Like, what does tranquility or rest or peace look like for you in your day to day?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have a very different answer to this than I had a year ago. I think, and honestly, I think I'm still totally in a process of discovering what my answer to this is in this chapter because pre Arlo, which is my son, who is my son, I think a lot of what helped with my tranquility was alone time, reading a book, exercise, going to the beach always. And I think all of those things are definitely true. I also have found that he is a wonderful forcing function for me to be present. I think having something in my life that I I just know that time is, it already feels so fleeting. And it's so important to me to be fully present for this chapter when we are together. And there is just nothing like watching an 8-month-old scream at a tree in delight to really make you be like, you know what? I don't need to answer that other email right now. It can wait until tomorrow. I mean, I do think having clear boundaries, and again, this is something I'm continuously reinventing and renegotiating of like when I will and will not work, no matter how much I love the work on the thing. Um, and also being really intentional about when it is time to do the work. And sometimes that's at unconventional hours because the only time I'm going to have the brain space and feel creative is post bedtime. I think it's like really right now for me, tranquility and peace is like taking everything a week at a time. And there have been weeks in this journey where I'm like, I worked out 5 times. I went on a redwood hike with my dog. Like it has been such a good week for peace and tranquility. And there have been weeks that have been like a little bit more chaotic, but the joy from this journey is like, I got to go to a conference and I got to connect with my people in person and I got to hear some people I worked with 5 years ago reflection on how they're living the life that we were like calling in 2020. And like that's so meaningful. And it's like maybe not peaceful, but it does like really reinforce that impact. And so I think just also making time as much as possible and having relationships that help me identify when I'm feeling depleted in my own, like whether it's self-reflection bucket or in my exercise bucket or in my rest bucket, so that I can make those shifts like as needed. I think I'm like really in a moment of like realizing that there's just not one perfect answer and just wanting to be present to what is. So it's a lot of like an enoughness practice too, of just letting whatever can happen and the time that's available for work be enough.
Those are great reflections. I think it reminds us all that it doesn't have to be the same thing at all times. What we need on one day or one week or one month might change. Seasons change, our needs change, our life changes. And that it also doesn't have to be something big. It could be a walk, with your dog. It could be a fleeting, moment with your son who is growing up so fast. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be something grandiose that brings you that calm or that peace. And also, I love your advice about setting boundaries. That's something we talk a lot about here, especially with our solopreneur guests and folks that are building communities. How can we be intentional about setting boundaries? How can we encourage others to do so? To maximize time for ourselves so we can show up our best when it is time to work or when it is time to support other people, when it is time to get down to business and make an impact. So thank you for those reflections. It's great to hear what's worked for you, but also great advice for all of us.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, definitely not something where I feel like I have all the answers. I feel like this is like it's been such an experience of just having so much grace for like not having the answers and letting being present be success.
That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, I mean, talk about an important outcome, right? Like at the end of the day, what really matters in all of this, right? It's like, when we all, face the end and our legacy, it's like, is it gonna be that I stayed up until midnight working on the emails, or is it that I spent time with my son, right? Like, and I think that's so well said, and just a good reminder for all of our listeners, like go for the walk, to spend the time with the person, do the thing that needs to be done because that's what you're going to regret at the end of the day if you don't take it, right? So, and coming back to that, I mean, I love how everything you've laid out has kind of just made sense and supported you on this journey moving forward. And where Girls Club Collective is going, what's the legacy that you hope that it's leaving, behind for the future, and how does that um, align with your own personal legacy?
Ooh, I just got the chills when you asked that. What I think is so cool for me with this experience of building GCC is that in real time, in literally the past 2 weeks, I'm getting to have these experiences of seeing like the like recognition of this community, like talking to someone who was in one of our first cohorts who was like, and I've been like, oh, I think you should talk to this person. Do you know this person? And they're like, oh, she's been on my list of people to like try to find time with. And I'm like, oh, you would love each other. You're both GCCers. And the like immediate like light bulb, like glitter moment of like, oh, I didn't even know this person like was in GCC. I already know I'm going to love them. Let me prioritize this conversation. Like seeing like that web get woven to me is just so cool. And I like have so much confidence that however the community itself continues to evolve, like the idea that there's this like web of relationships that are supporting like cool people doing cool things who like care about building a better future. It's helping them like find each other, connect with each other, collaborate with each other. Like that is just so cool to me. It's so cool to me. And I feel like, what this community has asked of me has really been stepping into a totally different kind of leadership, model of leadership. Um, we often talk about it as feminine leadership. I think it could also be described as collective leadership. Like who I am as a leader has been like totally revolutionized, I think, in the best possible way by running this community. Like the way that like I have been asked to embody like we over I and not feeling like I have to have all the answers and asking for help and listening to my intuition and prioritizing rest. It's completely changed how I show up and have shown up. And I think when I think about the impact that I want to make on like the world and like also just like my little corner of the world and like my family, my relationships, is like how can like I be an example of like a different kind of leadership for a better future that works for all of us. And I think GCC for me has been a really cool vehicle for that, and then getting to see it be a vehicle for like so many people around me with big bold dreams for themselves, has been really cool as well.
I love that. I love the we over I love the collective leadership. Just really appreciate all that you shared and all in the impact that you're having. It sounds like this has been obviously, a powerful journey and gift that you've given others. And it seems like it's also been a gift to yourself, the community you've created. Like you said, you've gained a lot from it too. So it's just really great to hear about your reflections and kind of the legacy that you hope to leave, and the impact you've already had and continue to have. Before we close out, Liz, I wanted to see if there's anything that we missed that you wanted to share with our listeners. And also, if folks want to reach out to you or connect or learn more about GCC, where can they find you?
We'll answer the second part first so I don't forget. The best place to find me is probably on LinkedIn. I'm Liz Best. It's Liz with an S and then Best. You can find GCC on LinkedIn as well. Our website is girlsclubcollective.co, and the best place to connect with us, besides joining our mail list, which is awesome, is coming to one of our community power hours, which are quarterly gatherings to just connect with the most generous like room of people I think on the internet. We usually have like over 50 really awesome humans there who just want to like make your life better and easier and build relationships. So definitely would love for anyone listening who's curious to come join us. I think it's something that like it when you feel it, and we've created a really cool feeling in that room. Um, and I think the thing I will just like offer to leave everyone with, I know we've talked about like some like big topics today. And I think the thing that I keep coming back to, because as we're recording this, is like just again, it's a hard time to be a person. It's a hard time to be working in impact. And I think I'm just reminding myself all the time, in the words of Adrienne Marie Brown, like small is all. And so like we don't like, if we think about how we want to like change the world, I think sometimes that can get so overwhelming. But if we just think about like how we're showing up, like in our relationships, like with our people, like if we're doing one tiny thing today to like make someone feel seen and supported, to support a cause or an organization, to like maybe amplify someone doing something cool who could use a little bit of like love and confetti. Those things really do add up. And I think it can like feel really overwhelming to like just not know what to do or if we're making a big enough impact. But I'm just, again, continuously reminded that like it's really like the little things and the little things add up. And so if you're feeling like you want to feel like you're doing something meaningful and important, like it could be making a phone call, it could be not like working until midnight and giving yourself time to rest. It could be the walk on down the street or the breath of fresh air or the moment of wonder. It doesn't have to be like the huge, huge thing every single day.
So beautifully said. I love that, Liz. Small is all. Do I have that right? Small is all. Love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Well, it has been so wonderful having you on the podcast today. Thank you so, so much for your time. This has been inspiring, uplifting, and it's just been great to get to see you and get to know you better. So thank you, Liz, for your time. And we will be right back after this short break.
Thank you so much for having me.
Looking to make an impact, but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose-driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more. Welcome back. It's time for us to share what's on our mind. Trevor, what has been on your mind recently?
Well, Erin, so many things. As I mentioned, lots of transitions. So I've been thinking about like what does this all mean? What's the big picture? And it's been a reminder for me to slow down and start saying no to something, start doubling down and saying yes to things more intentionally when I do that. And so that's really like what I've been trying to practice. And I went to a leadership course over the summer. That was one of the my many excuses for taking a break between episodes. But like during that time, it really made me think about we talk a lot about purpose. We talk about how people live that through their individual selves, their communities, their organizations. And the best way to align that is just to be really intentional about the things we do and spend our time with and where we take action and spend our energy. And so it reminded me if I'm trying to spread my energy too many ways, too thin, I'm not going to be very effective at very many things. And so, and there's also something to appreciate about the joys of slowing down, like we were talking about the enjoyment of holidays earlier and spending that time with loved ones. And I think like that's kind of the reward for so many of this, and like the greatest connector to why our purpose matters is those people. So yeah, I think slowing down, spending more time with the things that truly matter. That's what I've been thinking about more. The hard part, of course, is trying to practice it, which I'm still trying to get better at all the time. But that's been with me, Erin.
I love that. I think it's such an important reminder to me, to everyone listening. Sometimes it feels easier said than done, but the benefits, make it all worth it. Make that intentionality worth it of just trying to give yourself space and time, which allows for perspective, which allows for transformation and change, which allows for more connection. I feel like when we pause and almost do less, we're able to connect more and connect more thoughtfully and more intentionally and in a deeper, more long lasting way. So I love that that's something that you're focusing on in this busy season for you. And it's definitely a great reminder to all of us, especially during the holidays when we're go, 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 trying to do everything, see everyone, to like know that it's okay to say no. It's okay to take a step back. It's okay to take time for you. We can't, as they say, we can't, help others unless we help ourselves. The oxygen mask, metaphor. We can't pour from an empty cup. So I love that. And that kind of reminds me, what I've been thinking of too, Trevor, because I've been thinking a lot about community in this season and how we connect. Of course, all of our guests that we have on are very connected to community. I was actually doing a talk with social impact job seekers recently, trying to kind of turn networking on its head and make it less scary, less daunting, and help it to feel less transactional. And as I was talking about that, it really got me to think of like what community is as its core, at its core, excuse me. And it's, it's relational, right? It's something that we invest in for the long haul. So when we are, like you said, taking time to give ourselves space and give ourselves breaks and pauses, but we decide to invest in maybe a few really strong relationships, we want to figure out how we can keep them going, right? So I feel like it's a lot about how we, the work we put in, the energy, the effort, the trust. This goes for job seeking type networking or community building, but just community building throughout our careers in general. I talk about how it's so important to constantly be, connecting with others. It doesn't need to be tons of new people, but keep your relationships going. If you have 5 people from your past jobs or, past stages of your career that you've really hit it off with, keep in touch and keep those relationships growing. You've planted the seeds. Now we need to water the seeds. We need to keep them growing back every year. And how can we do that? And that's checking in, that's updating, that's showing a real interest in what they're doing. That's not just, asking for something, but it's also giving. It's not transactional, it's relational. So yeah, so I love what you said about slowing down and setting boundaries and taking time for yourself. And then I also think a great offshoot is make time for people in your life and your career, of course, and in this context that matter, but don't get overwhelmed with quantity. Focus on quality of those relationships.
100%, Erin. That's so well said. I was thinking too, because you're absolutely right. It's about those relationships, and you want to like, remind yourself of like who did I really click with at that workplace? Who did I work on that project on that was like, you know, just defied my expectations or just like really, and I think that's really important. The other thing I want to say, because I like get so much like self-guilt for not following up enough with people that I should be or keeping in touch and wanting to, and I think I just try to say like even if it's been a year, a few years, or even even if you're usually in touch with someone, it's been months, like there's nothing wrong with reaching out to somebody. Like they'd probably love to hear from you, and like they may feel the same way that you do, and you're just gonna break the ice. So I think like don't be afraid to reach out, and like the worst thing that can happen is like they don't reciprocate, which is like totally fine. So I think that's so well said. And like yeah, if you're it's also really good, I think, when you're looking for advice, to think about, yeah, who can I reach out to on something and ask for their advice, because I think that's cool. People love that, and they'll feel so treasured that you would care what they thought about something.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because there's no better time than the present. And I wouldn't want anyone to feel like, oh, I haven't talked to them in 5 or 10 years, so it's too late. Never too late. Never, no better time than now. Sometimes folks ask me, like, how do I reinitiate a relationship? Like, what do I say after all these years? Holidays are a great touch point. Happy New Year, happy holidays. If they have a work anniversary coming up, maybe say, hey, happy 5 years at your company. How are things going? Would love to reconnect. Maybe they post about something on their LinkedIn, a recent accomplishment that they've had, say, hey, congrats, that's awesome. Would love to hear how you've been. It's been too long. So, and like you said, never hurts. The worst that can happen is they don't respond, and that's fine. It happens. But more times than not, people will be so overjoyed to hear from you, no matter how long it's been. And those relationships are truly what it's all about as we grow our careers, especially in the impact space where we're so committed to working together. We're all in it for, you know, similar reasons. We all want to make a positive impact, and we can only do it together. So investing in those relationships will really pay dividends and will, I'm sure, be really personally meaningful as well. Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Erin Mogel, Trevor Loke, and presented by Elevate Social Impact and OrgMatch. Editing is by Tristan Thompson. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of each month. Visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.